Hey everyone, welcome back. I got a new game for you to check out today. This one goes by the name Outriders, an upcoming third-person looter shooter, which you may or may not know, I'm traditionally a fan of this kind of game. Now this particular one features 4 unique classes with their own skills and play styles, loads of gear to collect with item levels, rarities, stats, and traits. There's a wide variety of locations, enemies, and even boss fights, a progression system via world tiers, drop-in, drop-out co-op, character customization, and all of this within a fully voiced story campaign. Outriders is being developed by People Can Fly, the creators of Gears of War Judgment, Bulletstorm, and the Painkiller franchise. They've got a long history of making shooters and have said that this is the game they've always wanted to make. So last week, the embargo lifted from a press event that took place for this game, and with that, we got a bunch of articles and videos, just some coverage, giving us a lot of information. Now, I wasn't cool enough to get invited, but I did watch all the videos, so I'm basically an expert. So with that, what is Outriders? Let's talk about it. So let's go ahead and start off with the setting and the story. Humankind has traveled to this planet called Enoch in hopes of discovering a brand new home. Upon arrival, they receive this mysterious signal, so of course they go to try to find its source, and in doing so unleash an anomaly, this massive storm that takes over the planet, destroys all technology, summons hordes of deadly creatures, and gives humans magical powers. And then in come the Outriders, our character, who can harness the anomaly's power in an attempt to save humanity. So that's the setting. What's the game like? Well, it's a third-person looter shooter. Now, in some of their initial videos, the developer has said they're focused on delivering a powerful gameplay experience in a world that's fun to explore and with shooting that feels good. Now, here's some footage of the intro tutorial. Players will be starting off in this war zone, fighting back the game's evil human faction called the Insurgents. Now, at first glance, with the snapping into cover, popping up, shooting, and mantling, I'm getting a very strong Gears of War vibe here, but I guess that shouldn't be surprising. Of course, the notable difference is the presence of these magical skills. Overall, gameplay seems to be a healthy mix of shooting and using your abilities. Players will have access to 3 weapons at a time, 3 skills, along with a special melee attack. You'll notice your character has a level, there are world tiers, which I'll get to later, quests with objectives, and the enemies have nameplates with their health, level, and debuff status. There's also a party frame, as this game does feature drop-in, drop-out co-op with parties of up to 3. Now, looking at the gameplay, it looks like a third-person shooter. I mean, we could draw some pretty clear parallels here to games like The Division, Warframe, or the fairly recently released Remnant from the Ashes. Hell, you could even compare this to Destiny if Destiny was a third-person game. And not to be reductive, but you know, it's a looter shooter. Like, we get it, we know what to expect, and it seems like this game is delivering upon those expectations. Let's go ahead and talk about the classes next. There's going to be 4 classes in the game with their own unique playstyle, skills, passives, and a healing ability. Now, 3 out of the 4 have been revealed so far. First, we've got the Pyromancer, a medium-range conjurer who harnesses explosive volcanic energy. You can do things like summon a wave of flames or release this explosive barrage that stuns enemies in an area. There's the Trickster, the close-range hit-and-run character who manipulates the fabric of space and time. They've got a magic blade that slices through enemies and can create a space-time anomaly that slows down enemies and projectiles. And finally, we know about the Devastator, the close-range tank all about brute force and defenses. He can slam the ground, releasing this conal shockwave that knocks enemies back. He's got this Fortify ability to reduce incoming damage. I mean, he's the tanky, control-y type character. Now, the early footage that we've seen shows each of the classes having 8 skills that they can eventually unlock, and from that, you'll pick 3 to have active at any given time. Beyond the skills, there's also this passive tree for every class, with 3 specialization branches offering traits that will tailor to a certain playstyle. So for example, if you want to play a trickster who's more focused on being a high damage assassin, or one with more survivability, you'll have the option to do so. Classes are said to also have the ability to combo their skills, and it's said that this sort of group play is going to be required when you go into the higher difficulty world tiers in this game. Now, what about the loot and customization? Well, again, this is a full loot game. So we're talking armor, weapons, mods, and And hell, in one of the trailers, they even showed some sort of customization with various parts to collect for a vehicle. Now, the loot in the game is going to have levels, rarities, and a variety of stats similar to many other looter shooters. There'll be different weapon types that you expect, like shotguns, rifles, and pistols, and all of them will have values for things like their damage, accuracy, stability, and range. And of course, the higher rarity items will have better values along with special perks, like for example, there's shots that slow enemies, or boosted crit rate and healing, shots that make an AoE explosion or inflict a freeze. You know, if you've played a looter shooter with gear that has stats and passives and traits, you basically know what to expect from the gear that we've seen so far in this game. And in addition to the weapons, there's also armor that additionally has levels, rarities, stats, and perks, and it looks like there's going to be 5 different armor slots to fill in the game. The real question with a game like this is, will there be armor sets or unique items with interesting abilities? We're not talking about just like flat damage increase or adding AoE or life leech. Games like this, the replayability value really comes through having cool gear with unique, interesting abilities that you can almost form an entire build around. Like having these weapons that have their own special skills that you just don't get on your base characters really helps add for something to work towards and some interesting long-term gameplay loop. Now, not every game needs that kind of long-term replayability progression, but traditionally, loot-based games like this are all about that. So we'll have to wait and see what they have in store for these legendary unique items. Oh, and then also this game does have some character customization. You can make your own Outrider. Not a ton of options, but it looks like you can pick from several presets for faces, hair, and even marking options. So that's the gameplay, the characters, and a little bit about the loot. But what do you do in this game? Well, again, there's a fully voiced story campaign, and as you progress through the story, you'll be unlocking new zones that you can go through. They said there'll be forest and mountains and desert biomes to explore, but it's worth noting, it's not an open world, but rather it's instance areas with this series of hubs and spokes is how they described it. And in addition to the main story, there's going to be side quests, world objectives, and mini bosses, all with their own rewards. The game will have this city hub, and in it you'll find NPCs that give quests and vendors that sell weapons and armor. And the big thing with this game is the world tiers that we talked about earlier. These are progressively harder versions of the game with more difficult enemies and better rewards. From what we've seen, there's going to be 15 world tiers in total, and every world tier increase will increase the enemy level, legendary drop rate, chance for higher rarity items, and the item levels. Now, this appears to be the main focus of progression. Like, you'll be playing through the main story campaign, going through the beats, fighting through these bosses, bumping up those world tiers and getting the higher chance to get better items, fight more difficult enemies, really where the challenge and the replayability appears to come from. And speaking of the enemies, I just want to touch on them briefly. There's an enemy faction of human players called the Insurgents that I mentioned earlier. There's also a variety of creatures. Again, this whole thing is focused around this deadly storm that came in and summoned up all these creatures from, I don't know, wherever. But besides enemy humans and tiny enemy creatures, you're going to encounter mini bosses that have their own mechanics and are a little more difficult to fight. You'll find those out in the world. And there's even full-on boss fights. Like, we're talking big bosses that within set arenas that have several stages to progress through. I even saw mention of an enrage timer, which touches my MMO fanboy heart dearly. Real honest to goodness boss fights. I mean, it's cool. You like to see that kind of thing. In fact, in some of the game's trailer footage, there were some hints at these massive boss creatures. Now, who knows if that's just going to be story and lore based, or if you're actually going to fight something this big. That's just something we'll have to wait and see. And the final big aspect of this game that I want to touch on is PvP. There is none. No PvP is going to be in this game. Instead, they are focused on the PvE loot experience. Now, this is rather good news when it comes to weapon and skill balance, but bad news for fans of PvP. If you're looking for some competitive experience here, doesn't look like Outriders is going to deliver. But if you want another loot game to grind through and progress this character, that's what they're all about, and that is what they're going to be entirely focused on. So finally, this game is planned to release in holiday of 2020. It'll be coming to current and next-gen consoles, as well as PC via Steam. Now, I gotta say, from everything that I've seen so far, it doesn't look bad. I mean, really, this looks like it could be pretty good. I'd certainly say at times I'm getting this like AA vibe. Some of the animations that look a tad stiff, and some of the world detail is a little bit lacking. You know, there's a chance that's all gonna get another pass before this game actually launches. And even if it doesn't, if the animations are a little stiff, if the detail isn't through the roof, I don't think that's necessarily the end of the world either, because it all comes down to the game gameplay and the progression that decides whether or not this game is interesting and has any sort of longevity to it. Now, I have seen some concerns about the gunplay from people who played it, and obviously that makes me a little bit wary because gunplay is one of the most important things. But I gotta say, the developer has a long history of making shooters, so I feel like at this point they probably get what makes gunplay feel good. It's just a question of, can they deliver it in this new latest game of theirs? And besides that, I think there's also still a question of end game. Like, we know there's the story campaign that we can go through playing with our friends if we want, but what about the replayability? Yes, there are the world tiers. We can bump up the difficulty and get a better item drop and harder enemies to fight, but what else is there gonna be? They have made mention that there's gonna be things besides replaying the campaign, but we're unsure of what that's going to be. Obviously, the hope is once you play through the campaign, all of those zones that you unlocked as you progress through the story will just become fully available, and they have some sort of reason to go back, whether it's like zone objectives to complete, you know, kill X number of enemies, fight this boss modifiers. That's the real big one. If you're gonna have all the same boss fights and all the same mini bosses, not only bumping up their health and damage values, but making it more interesting, like adding elemental effects or special unique abilities for different variations. Boss modifiers would be a huge boon to any hope of replayability. You know, I don't feel like every game needs like this long-term replayability that people can sink thousands of hours into. I just think there's an expectation when it comes to loot shooters or just loot-based games in general that that's the kind of experience they deliver. We'll have to see what they have in mind when it comes to Outriders. They also really tried to drive home this idea that this is not going to be a games as a service, you know, something like Destiny, that basically what they intend with saying that is that the game will be launching with a solid end game. It's not something you're gonna have to wait for later down the road. I don't know. I mean, it looks cool so far. I'm really interested in what I've seen. Before we wrap up too, quickly want to give a shout out to Mtash, Rick Kakis, and Eric's. Some of the gameplay footage that I've used in this video comes from videos of theirs. They were the ones cool enough to get invited to that event. I feel like I'm being a sappy ass beggar here. No, I don't have to get invited to every game's event. I mean, it would be nice and make me feel included as part of the game industry and all that stuff, but I don't have to. It's okay if I don't. Anyways, yeah, check out their videos. I'll put a link below. They had some first hands-on impressions. Overall, it seemed pretty positive, but I know a couple of those videos were sponsored, so, you know, I'm just saying. So yeah, that pretty much does it. That is a look at Outriders. Hopefully you guys are all filled in now and get a good idea of what this title's about. This kind of popped up out of nowhere for me. I think it was first announced like 8 months ago, but I don't ever remember hearing about it, so I just learned about this recently, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. So I'm looking forward to Holiday 2020, looking forward to learning more about this game and getting my hands on it myself. And yeah, that's that. Outriders, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later. Oh, quickly, for those of you who stay for the very end, I just want to say, recently on my channel, things have been going crazy. Like, the support for my videos has been absolutely unreal. I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and I've seen a fairly consistent formula where sometimes I'll get really excited about a game personally. I cover it a lot. We're talking about titles like StarCraft 2, Diablo 3, Overwatch, and I make a lot of videos about it, and my channel does really well. This is the first time in a very long time that my channel has been consistently doing well, just not focused on one particular game. And really, I think that's the dream as a YouTuber, that I can make a variety of content about the variety of things that I'm interested in, not feel like I'm shoehorned into just covering one particular topic or one particular game, and to still have absolutely crazy support on these videos. I mean, it really is a dream come true. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who watches my stuff, to all the old viewers and new viewers alike. I appreciate you. Still, after 10 years of making videos, it astounds me every day that anybody watches anything that I put on the internet, let alone in such high numbers. It's really pretty spectacular. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you later.